Adapt to a new reality, Mario Denton. And today we're going to discuss this topic of, trust and respect as well as interpersonal skills. Why is this so important? Because we're talking about post-COVID-19. And I know there's going to be job losses. We need to talk about how can we restructure the economy. We need to get out of the ICU. And a lot of people ask the question, so talk about a reset. And I'm saying, I don't know, but the world's going to look different. And one of the key things that you need to discuss is about things like empathy, things like interpersonal, also dealing with offenses. Is there a specific recipe and how do we do these type of things? And I'm always saying, and I want to repeat, it's your character plus your competency plus your chemistry that's going to give you your consistency. So in times like this, we need to be very transparent. Also, what I would like to suggest is we need to learn how to manage upwards. And business schools and leadership training programs are all about leading downwards. But how do you deal and how do you manage upwards? How do you deal with damage, workplace emotions and disappointment? So I've noticed that often people are offended, and if you are offended, there's hurt, there's anger, there's jealousy, there's resentment, there's strife, there's hatred, and these type of things that I'm saying, it's going to be there. So when you see these type of things, how are you going to make the difference? What are you going to do? And again, I want to say, please, and listen to this one, don't send anybody just on a course for keeping them busy. I think it's wrong, and I believe the days of 2 days and 3 days and 4-day conferences, I think it's something of the past. Put them on online training programs. Put them on stuff that you can fix. And we talk a lot about during the COVID-19 period about viruses, but what about the corporate viruses that are making people sick? If you think about that, yes. And I've done some research on corporate viruses, and it's real. So one of the big corporate viruses is always about peak performance when you deal with performance management. But what I want to say, check your energy givers, check your energy wasters. Where are they coming from and what can you do about it? So we need to close the gaps. We need to look at, where do we stand right now? And then specifically in terms of interpersonal skills, put everybody on an online course that they can close the gap, they can learn these type of things. Because we're going to be in a time that I'm saying is you're going to see some, I call it leadership sins. And what are those type of things? It's a lot about self-interest. It's about people's not doing self-reflection. It's vision without execution, and they fail to adapt. And these are dangerous things. So let's talk about relationship management. Let's talk about specifically those people skills and how we can close the gap, because that to me is important. A simple thing that I want to use is a social contract. Let me give you some background and why I believe in this. It was during my MBA days, one of my students approached me and said, Mario, I need to do some research under you. And can I talk about a psychological contract? And I said, well, let's talk about it. And then I realized in the workplace, we've got a performance contract, but what about a social contract? In a social contract, you explain the way we're going to do things. And I've got brilliant examples I've implemented with various organizations, and please make contact so that we can apply these type of things. So again, when you look at interpersonal skills, play a person according to his strengths. I've done the strengths finder, and my top 5, I'm always looking at my top 2 and 3. It's like it's futuristic, it's like strategic, it's responsibility, it's ideas, and a maximizer. And I love using that. What we also need to do in times like this, check accomplishments. So talk to your staff, ask them things like, what have you achieved the last 3 months? The reasons for success, things that's not coming up to our expectations. How can we close the gap? And then I know for a lot of people don't like 360-degree feedback, but I believe there's a place for it. So if you want to know specifically, Mario, are you a good dad? Don't ask me. Yes, you can ask me or ask my wife, but what about if you ask my children? Because that is what I call part of 360-degree feedback. So you can ask a couple of questions. How does that person fit in, and talking about the way he's managing his time. But I want to close this gap by saying I want you to be a top performer. How can you do that? And it's simply a couple of guidelines. Meet the specific objectives. Spell out expectations. Come up with new ideas. Overcome some difficulties. And that to me is something that I can really work on. And there's a couple of what I call Gallup research questions, and they've asked questions: are you clear about your expectations, your commitments, your direction? So you can put a typical 10-point questionnaire together and ask these questions. Do you get enough feedback? Yes or no? Is this organization inspires me to higher levels of performance? So let's talk. What is going to be the next steps? And to me, I'm saying is I put an online training program together. It's all about self-management. And in self-management, as well as specifically the interviewing skills and coaching, that you need to be very competent. So adapt to a new reality. This is not the end of the world. I'm saying keep on rewinding and rethinking. Let's look at the way forward, discuss these type of things. And I know that this area will be very successful if you start implementing this. Go and make the difference.